In this episode, we dive into the world of collective intelligence and decentralized decision making with David Oram, CEO of LUCA Theory, a company that specializes in the complexities of decision making and leveraging Web3 incentives to build knowledge and communities. This chat is all about the power of us, how we make choices together, and how sharing what we know could help influence massive decisions. We'll explore the power of rewarding people for their knowledge and their track record, and the implications this has on our society. Enjoy.
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur in Montreal, originally from Newfoundland, and I've been working in the emerging tech space now for 5 or 6 years and really got in this space to be able to learn as much as possible about the evolution in the Web3 and the crypto world. When I started school originally, it was right in the middle of the financial crisis, and it really got me diving deep into what was going on in the financial world and how it really needed to change and evolve. And during that period, and right out of school, started learning more about Bitcoin. And it took a few years before finally diving deep into it and dedicating my entire kind of career to the space and figuring out what was next. But that is what led us to found a couple companies in the space, and the one I'm working on full time right now is LUCA Theory, and the niche for that company is in collective intelligence decision making, focused on human perception.
So, please, can you elaborate on what is LUCA theory? What is collective decision making and all the work that you're doing on that front?
Yeah, happy to dive deeper in that realm. And maybe a little bit of the story will help articulate a little bit of the approach that we kind of came at it with. So, probably about 6, 7 years ago now, my colleagues and I were beginning to work together, and we were starting to make a lot of our own investment and capital decisions. And we realized that we were fraught with biases, and we did not have a set way to be able to build, track, and maintain the collective intelligence of the group. It felt like it was just ended up resorting to whiteboards and then going out for beers after, and then someone else making the decision the next day. And it just kind of felt like this endless loop of talking and then trying to follow up and be like, oh, I told you this was going to happen. I told you that was going to happen. And we're like, no, there must be a better way to actually make group decisions and build collective intelligence and track our knowledge over time, both as individuals and as a group. And that's when we dove into the latest research on this. Particularly, our big inspiration was Ray Dalio and the way that he used believability weighted decision making to run one of the most successful hedge funds in the world. So we looked at ourselves and like, hey, we're definitely not operating like that. And if we want to ever be able to kind of compete at these levels professionally, to be able to make group decisions, we're like, we need to develop better tools, technologies, and approaches. And that's what led us to create LUCA Theory, is to be able to design those systems, build those algorithms, and provide actionable insights and recommendations for groups when they're making decisions, and particularly around decentralized decision making where not all the parties are known to each other. And this obviously fits very well into the Web3 and the crypto world, where a lot of these projects are disparate and they need new tools to be able to facilitate decision making, particularly in DAOs and other forms of communities and organizations online.
So, what kind of decisions are we talking here? Like financial trading decisions, governance, other types, or all of them?
All of them, yeah. And particularly the niche we have right now is on the financial markets, particularly any market with a really rapid data flow and feed where we can constantly learn about who the super forecasters in our communities and groups are, because we want to be able to quickly rank, track, identify trends in the groups and in the individuals so that we can provide constant actionable insight. So whether this is options trading, whether these are sports futures, whether these are normal investment decisions, then this is where we've really carved out our niche, particularly because it allows us to onboard people very quickly to communities, take their insights and their initial recommendations, combine that with our overall collective knowledge we have, and then constantly iterate and improve from there. but it can also work as well in, let's say, more qualitative areas. But a hard piece for these types of decision making tools on the qualitative side is to be able to identify what was a success, like was someone a good hire. You know what I mean? That can take a very long time. It's kind of subjective in how you analyze it. But if we're looking at financial markets and we're looking at markets where want a quantitative return, we can more quickly and easily identify when we've had success if we've kind of went with our instincts. Okay, we're looking for an XYZ return over a particular time frame, or we're looking to figure out when a certain event may happen. We can have much more defined metrics, like how kind of prediction markets work. And also in the Web3 world, I don't know if you've seen, I'm happy to dive into this a little bit, is there's now a bevy of options where you can deploy capital, prediction markets, and decentralized pools and environments where you're making judgments on the future outcomes that are not just normal financial prices of stocks or tokens, but much more broad events around the world, everything from climate to sports to politics to when we're going to land on the moon.
So, walk me through an example. If I wanted to use your platform, what would I, how would that work? And what's the difference between your current platform and what currently exists today?
Yeah, well, let's choose an example. The NBA Finals just finished last night. We had done a large set of predictions for the NBA Finals, and with this model that I'm going to explain now, we've actually just predicted 100% of the outcome for the NBA Finals. We were able to get Denver in five, Jokic MVP. So we're pretty happy here today with that result. I know that's going to be released in a few weeks, but I'm sure Denver will still be buzzing after that, as will we. But this is not a flash in the pan as well for us. This is the third sporting event, major sporting event in a row that we've had this type of success with. We had the World Cup final and the Super Bowl, where we were also over 90% in our predictions across those events. So, with this model, we've been able to really hone in on our expertise in around these particular types of events, but this also translates to other markets as well. These are the ones that we've had the most success with right now. And for you as a user coming in, the ideology is we want to know what you're thinking and we want to reward you for that knowledge. So very simple, seamless kind of onboarding flow. Think more like chatbots, more like TikTok style flow. We're going to be able to onboard you to that ecosystem. You're going to be able to share your insights and your predictions about the particular events that we're sending you. You know, it's going to be a very easy flow. You're going to get a lot of action coming to you. You're going to be able to share your perception and your knowledge on what is coming. And then depending on the event or the time frame in which we're analyzing your predictions versus everybody else, if you are playing a free sweepstakes style event, you can kind of get a reward and a win if you were to top that week, let's say. Or if we're looking at one game, one night, maybe you were the top player for that event, or you can enter premium and high roller pools as well, where you're going to compete and you're going to pay to play. And then you're going to get a chance to share in those proceeds. And during this flow, we are able to generate the collective intelligence and the knowledge based on the overall community. And this is not a one hand, one vote type of democracy we're running here. This is, we are trusting the people and the subsets of people in our communities who have a proven track record of performance. So these are very competitive environments. These are very skilled environments which we're creating. But we find that that really brings forward the best of the crowd knowledge and the best in the individual knowledge, so that we then are able to analyze and aggregate the data and then provide that back to our community so they can go use that wherever they may like, wherever they invest, wherever they trade. They can go use those insights then to be able to get alpha wherever else they go. And then obviously when they kind of perform on our platform, they can get bonuses and rewards, there's streaks, there's benefits, you know, everything that kind of goes with that flow. And then as well, obviously on our end, we're able to leverage those insights as well, whether in these B2B partnerships, but also leaning even more into the DAO and DeFi market, as we can really automate decision making with this flow. As you can see, you can kind of come in and you can either be a periphery member of the community or a core member of the community, and then be able to get additional exposure to the collective intelligence, to the knowledge, and then obviously to the returns and the proceeds that come with this intelligence.
So, if I were to understand collective intelligence, the way that you define it and the way that you use it is through a curated list of experts. You make a decision, you place a certain bet on a certain event, and then you publish those predictions to your community, and your community can either agree or use this information to place their bets in other areas. And I'm guessing there is some sort of fee that you get in exchange for this information that people are getting access to. Would that be a good summary of the platform and the service you're offering?
Yeah, that's a great summary.
Okay. And so, how do you involve your community in the decisions? Like, what if people are against the predictions of your curators? Can they edit or modify that prediction? Is there a two-way feedback situation going on?
In certain instances, yes, but generally, when there's an event, we share the insights before the event starts when the markets are still open, but after we've closed kind of the pool or the prediction event on our end, to allow people that time to kind of use it as they choose rather than it be a constant, oh, I don't agree or I disagree with this or no on his end, because technically that is like that's your choice during when you're making your predictions, and then also your choice after what you choose to do with them. But there is levels of the algorithms which we've also built and designed for like what we consider kind of an executive decision making, which allows any smaller team or group or cohort to then get an additional say, and not just taking the broad community, particularly, if you have a lot of new people coming in, you're not quite sure how to weight them or trust them and everything, but you still want to know what they're thinking and run an analysis on it. But then to allow a smaller subset, and this is a big human in the loop piece, which is obviously a big discussion in AI markets anyway. This human in the loop piece, there's still someone that's going to be press and play, but you can also have layers. So you can have like kind of the thinking it as like an ecosystem. You can have the entire jungle kind of come in and ask and everything, but then you get down to the smaller pod, and then that's where you can go ahead and analyze with, say, the executives, probably the ones with more stakes in the overall game there, and then they can be the ones that kind of feedback. But yeah, it's always interesting to see people when maybe they don't agree, but that's just part of the game.
Yeah. And how does Web3 fit into all of this? Why even use any Web3 technologies to feed your either your algorithm? Well, not they're not feeding your algorithm, but why even use Web3 technologies to deliver this service to people?
Yeah, great question, and is really at the core of what we do and how we view the evolution of the internet, and dying in a ditch for the right things, being that digital ownership rights and digital property rights is a huge piece. And if you're going to be sharing your collective intelligence, your knowledge, we want to stand for that backbone and allow people to have their identity on the platform be transferable to them and connected to the rest of the Web3 ecosystem, and be able to show those results, show those insights that they've shared, and show that track record that they've shared. So that is a really core tenet and backbone of what we do and why we believe in it, and the way that soul bound tokens can be associated with this. So you have proof of your performance, you have proof that you've been able to share this knowledge and you've engaged in these communities. Obviously, it can kind of be done in traditional Web 2 worlds, but we really are seeing the future of this and the ability for this to evolve over seasons, over particular events, everything that kind of can go with that membership and that community growth as well, and the ownership that kind of goes with that. And then in addition, the incentive mechanisms that Web3 offer to be able to get people to engage in these communities is very powerful. And this is one of the core pieces of crowd and collective intelligence, is you need people incentivized accordingly. Otherwise, you're going to get just people guessing, or like when a pollster calls you and asks you who you're voting for, you just lie because you don't have any skin in the game. and there's no real reward or penalty for you to lie to these people, which is also a big issue that I would say traditional polling and online surveys and everything kind of had in this genre of ideas over the years. So those are some pieces on this. If we're just thinking about the communities and the people in and of themselves, that as a company, we want to be able to support people with those options. And then more broadly, on the use of the collective intelligence and the use of the AI itself and accessing new markets where we can quickly and easily use the intelligence generated and then deploy capital and funds accordingly. This whole piece of the blockchain Web3 world is what smart contracts were really designed for. And it's really the power of DeFi. It's the power of DAOs to be able to operate in this autonomous, decentralized manner, leveraging the best of AI and quickly find markets for the intelligence and deploy it, get your returns, pool that money together, deploy it. This is not really the way, that the traditional finance world works, nor traditional companies. So we really are keen and bullish on everything that's being built out on that part of the market as well, in terms of how to use the collective intelligence in these financial markets. And then another piece, which is obviously blowing up right now in the Web3 world, is AI and its association with different networks, different projects, and different companies that are either on or off chain. And that ability to data share and open source a lot of what's being done and have that then be used throughout the AI world or throughout the collective intelligence world or throughout the finance world. There's a lot growing and evolving there as well. So those are, I would say, the three main reasons that we feel that Web3 provides us tools and access and benefits that the traditional financial world and the traditional app world has just not been able to thus far.
Yeah, and I can understand, and I see the value in having Web3 embedded into what you do, especially if you want to check the track record of some of the curators and some of the past predictions that have been set. It definitely adds to the credibility, which is key in some of the decisions that need to be made. Do you foresee expanding beyond sports predictions? And if so, what other areas are you interested in expanding towards?
Yeah, absolutely. And sports is definitely our beachhead. And it wasn't our original intention when I mentioned that we started. Say we were doing normal investing, trying to pick between Tesla, Apple, and Google. Same ideology applies if you're picking between LeBron James, Jokic, or Steph Curry. Same algorithm, same type of approach, same ideology. If you can nail one, you can nail the other and have this approach evolve. And then even if you're just saying, hey, which cryptocurrencies are going to appreciate, who's going to win the Republican National Convention and be elected, these types of ideologies and the number of markets in which prediction markets, particularly Web3 based ones, are available now. The options are very, very broad and very powerful to where we could go with this. And particularly by creating this exclusive premium collective intelligence community that's very competitive, very curated, and very high end, you're starting to operate more than like a fund and an operation that starts to look more like the approaches that funds like Ray Dalio and them have created with Bridgewater and similar types of models. So those are the different markets that we're going to be able to go with these predictions, and we already have. This is how we funded the company as we built these algorithms. We made our investments, we made our bets, and then we, built out the overall applications and everything much more robust to be able to be friendly for consumers. So this, we've already done it in these other markets. And then even when it's not just financial markets, I think this is the biggest distinction with the approach and everything that we have is just, hey, sports is a niche. I know investing is still a niche, obviously very large markets in and of themselves, but we've also done this for recruiting. We've also done this for prediction on science experiments. We've also done this for more broad pieces during COVID as well to be able to help people analyze and understand where we thought things were going. So this is definitely a broad use case technology, but with any good startup, you need to nail it and then scale it. So, we're really nailing the sports market right now, which we have with the success rate, say over 90% across all these predictions over these last major sporting events. And now we're going to continue to lean into this market, do more and more. Is both the speed and the pace and the volume that we can do here is very large. And then yet again, as we mentioned, is one of the reasons that we enjoy the Web3 world is because it has a very open source sharing mindset and being able to have these tools embed in different DAOs and be adopted by different DAOs with different mandates and be able to help people make decisions and really track human perception and quantify that knowledge. And we're very excited about that future where we're able to help facilitate decisions across all of these markets.
So your algorithm, because you mentioned that a few times, it's not just the curators who are doing their research, coming up with their predictions, and then publishing that to your community, right? Your curators are feeding the data into the algorithm, and the algorithm spits out a result. Is that how it works?
Yeah, we don't really care where you get your knowledge and information from. And we try to be fairly agnostic on our side when we're having the events and we're having the system come to you with the knowledge. Like, say, if you're chatting with a chat bot or you're on TikTok kind of feed and you're giving that information to us, I don't care where you got your information before. I don't care what books you read. I don't care if you've ever been on Twitter. You know what I mean? It's kind of irrelevant to us. And this is a really core tenet of super forecasting and of collective intelligence overall that people easily miss, I think, when they're just getting into it, but is very obvious the more you are into it, is that experts are not experts when they just claim to have studied something and do something. The real experts are the ones that have a track record of performance and predicting and executing. So for us, we don't care if have watched every game or read every post from Vitalik or whatever your niche is that you're trying to find. We don't care how you got that knowledge. We just want you to kind of come to us and be rewarded for that knowledge and rewarded for that perception and grow and evolve together and compete and really put your money where your mouth is, both figuratively and literally on that end. And yes, our algorithm is the ability to analyze all that knowledge and learn how to trust people and know who to trust, when, how, why, and in what niche markets. Or the other thing kind of surprises us by doing this is learning when not to trust people or when we realize that we shouldn't trust the crowd or community at all and just avoid certain investments, avoid certain decisions because there isn't any conviction. And that's been one of the biggest learnings that I don't think we thought about when we first got going is we were always looking for the right answer. You know what I mean? We're like, okay, well, that's going to be the best result, or where are we going to be able to kind of get those wins, have those large successes, and have that confidence to execute. But the piece that we saw is like when it's agnostic and we can't find those trends, don't do anything. Save your money, don't deploy the capital. Let's just sit on it. You know what I mean? And sharing that information with our community, I think they find very helpful as well. Say, hey, it is too close to call. There's not enough conviction. And, we got half the super forecasters on one side, half on the other side. The crowd's all over the place. And there's no real niche knowledge being kind of able to be generated from it. So that's something that definitely surprised us. The more and more we developed the algorithm, the more and more data we fed it, the more and more we went down this route.
So the Web3 community, I feel likes a lot of proof of whatever statements, so like proof of work, proof of stake, proof of attendance. It sounds to me that you're building a proof of success algorithm or service where you're able, or people are able, to view the success of previous predictions and the likelihood of success of those predictions, and then make a decision based on a future event. And I think that that's hugely valuable because, well, I mean, when people are betting money or making financial decisions, you are making a decision because you expect a certain return. But even outside the scope of financial decisions, everyone makes a certain decision in order to achieve an expected outcome. And in a world where we want a level of certainty, For some decisions, it might not be super important because it's not a life or death thing. But for other decisions, that could be really important because of the impacts that it might have on your company, your health, your anything. How how do you allow, or how do you reconcile the idea of being okay with uncertainty, but also at the same time trying to be as right as possible? Because being as right as possible means you make money, your community members makes money, everyone makes money. Do you embrace uncertainty, or are you trying to go for the highest accuracy and success rate as possible?
Great question. And I really like this proof of success piece. And I think this is yeah, it's a good flow and think a very good framing for it because you
Feel free
want,
to
and
use
a
it.
big thing in the Web3 world is yeah, definitely well, I'm gonna steal it. Is trust yet again, right? And say around trust, around believability, and on the other side, around deceitfulness and around people that are, not acting honestly as well. Like this is a big piece for everything in the world. But I think Web3 and crypto has an ability to, as we always say, trust but verify. And if we're able to say build proof of success tools and be able to allow people to use their digital wallets and their passports and their identity, say, hey, look, I've been a member of this. I have expertise on this. Trust me and believe me if you want. But here's like, my proof of past success. And we all have those CVs. We all have those CVs that, we put up on LinkedIn and, you have a very well curated Instagram following, et cetera, et cetera. But those are very, manicured in often cases and sometimes not the most factual things. But if we're going to be going into higher and higher risky decisions, and we are going to want to build that trust, like I said, if we're making a financial outcome, we're making a financial decision with an expected outcome, great. Are we analyzing test results and reading a radiology result? Are you providing medical advice? Are you providing legal advice? That like proof of past success in similar domains and similar niches where you have that ability to crowdsource that knowledge and you have that ability to generate those insights. And obviously, depending on the environment, there's people that have like legal obligations or particular professional designations that make them have to kind of act in a certain way, whether it's financial, whether it's, law, medicine, etc. So there's always that piece when the stakes get higher and higher. And, it's one of the reasons we start kind of in finance and sports and prediction markets is because those tools are able to be built out in a way to say, hey, this is the success and this is the time frame, and we're able to do those kind of every day, right? We need that rapid feedback algorithm portion, and then the evolutionary piece is much stronger when we have that rapid feedback. And like any organism, when you constantly iterate and then it evolves, then you have that ability to grow the core and get much smarter. So then as we go out further into these other markets, we'll have tested in very fast, rapid environments. So then if we're given medical advice, like, hey, we don't, it's going to take another year to know if this is the actual correct piece. But if we've tested this in an environment and with approaches that are like, day to day, week to week, we know that those tools and those ecosystems can be more trustworthy when the risks are higher, the time frames are longer, and provide that confidence that the methodology is sound, the approach is sound. And as yet again, sticking to the sports analogies here, as certain teams have, like to say, you got to trust the process, right? You're not always going to be right. You're not always going to have the, success you want. And we're not always going to bat 100% on some of our predictions, but we have to trust the process. And that process is where we really wanted to put a lot of work into, knowing the core tenets of crowd and collective intelligence and continue to build those out. And for us, as you asked, it's not just about getting the, highest accuracy. It's about having a very tight, strong process, which is feeding the algorithm and feeding the approach in a very powerful way. So that's really what we're looking at. And then obviously we've done a lot of our own benchmarking as well, because we have that angle where we can have both a factor of what is the risk, what is the reward, and what is the probability. Because, certain events are, no one's going to care if you tell me, oh, I think Bitcoin's going to be above $1,000 by the end of the year. You know what I mean? Like that's not valuable to me. You probably 99% success. I can't make money on that. That's not, you know what I mean? I can't use that actionably. Or, if someone healthy comes in and you could try and like analyze, oh yeah, you look fine, you're going to be good. Like, yeah, of course. I mean, like we need to find those very niche environments where there is uncertainty and there is an ability to have alpha. And where you want to find that alpha is kind of up to you. And so we obviously chose the markets we have thus far. But we think that in the human mind and in the group, there's infinite alpha. Every single day, people have new insights about where the world is going, how things are changing, what may happen. And say that can be people predicting sports and markets. This can be people predicting politics, etc. There's infinite alpha, and the world's constantly changing, and it's only going to continue to change at this pace and faster going forward, particularly with other forms of AI as well. We think that the human knowledge aspect is of the utmost importance to leverage. All the machines that we're creating that are operating with generative AI and making predictions and providing us these new tools and insights and managing autonomously, we need to also not lose the human intelligence aspect and the group and human decision making piece, because we're always going to have to continue to collaborate and we need new tools to be able to do this. And as you said, we need to be able to prove success over time to know who to trust, when, why, and how. And that's really what we're dying in a ditch on.
I love that you brought up AI because I was going to ask about that now. um, given it's interesting because you're talking about collective intelligence, which of course requires a group of people. But then we've also got these AI tools who are able to replace the group of people by making its own decisions, or at least recommending a series of actions that the human can take. So where does AI fit in your business, in your model, what you're trying to create? And what will be the role of the human once AI is deeply rooted and part of your service offering?
Mm-hmm. So I'll answer the product and the way we designed it according to our approach with collective intelligence and leveraging machine learning principles such as reinforcement learning to be able to know how to identify those trends in groups. If we're looking for super forecasters and then we're looking for people that are really good at predicting a certain genre or market and predicting and then trusting people who are hot and have proven success over a certain timeline, whether it's a week or a month. Those pieces, as you can imagine, that takes a lot of data analysis to be able to do, and machine learning is the best at doing that. So for us, we're using those machine learning models and approaches. We're partnered with Next AI, which is one of the largest accelerators here in Canada, specializing on building AI-based companies. So we're leveraging the AI that's coming out of these institutions, such as Mila, and all the research that's gone on over 25, 30 years in this space to apply it to collective intelligence, group decision making in the way that we want to do it, and continuing to roll out more models with that. We just started this week as well with the Vector Institute, helping us prepare the data and the modeling and get it more embedded in our products. So it's, say it's faster, it's more accurate, it's more user friendly, etc. Because that's what a lot of these things, these models have existed for a long time. The work's been going on, but they haven't been always accessible, which is obviously what been the advent of ChatGPT. As large language models have existed for quite some time now, but it was a user interface evolution with ChatGPT, which allowed the AI zeitgeist to evolve once again and become so powerful in the market as it is today. And we obviously leveraged it, it's part of our businesses. And as savvy business operators, we believe that everybody needs to know how to integrate it to be able to be more efficient, be more powerful, be more lean. But it never really replaces us, it augments us, right? Like, yet again, we want to be able to partner with these tools. We want to be able to give people more tools to be able to support their work, whether it's our content creators, whether it's our coders, whether it's our accountants, or whether it's our actual investors in our community making their decisions. We want AI and whatever the best tools, whatever the best approaches are, routines, It's just another tool, and it's not here to replace. It's here to complement. It's here to support. And we think is a very large, long, bullish tail on this that we are going to continue to invest in. And then obviously for us, we know with our straight up approach with collective intelligence and AI, mirroring those together is also why we feel like we're at an inflection point with our product and our company and everything now, because we know we're going to be able to be much stronger with all this. And to go down a little piece with, because everyone's asked us this at our pitches, like, oh, well, are you just going to go ask ChatGPT, what's the price of Bitcoin going to be, by the end of the year? And these large language models, are not built for that. And that is not what their expertise is. All they're doing is scraping the web or past web. Very few live tools are good for anything that's very actual right now. There's a lot of bullshit in them. And we think our approach as well, we've tested it a few different ways, is one, with our approach as well, we can also work to tell if something's hallucinating, because it's very easy. Hey, read this. Do you believe this? Is this hallucinating or is this fact? You can use a collective intelligence approach very quickly to identify that and know when to trust the robots. And I think that's a big piece, is knowing when to trust generative AI, when we need to trust the robots, and how many people need to make that decision. Is it one? Is it 10? And particularly when there is large financial or medical or whatever decisions being made, is how do we trust these robots? How do we trust these recommendations? How do we trust these predictions that any of these machines are making? And then rope them into the overall collective intelligence of a team and a group. So we've also done a lot with that, with just like weighting it. Okay, ask the bot something, and then ask the humans the same thing. How do those predictions differ? Who was right? How do we weight them? So baking them into everything we're doing with prediction, and having them be either something we're analyzing in and of itself because you're looking for that to give the answer, or having it be part of the overall algorithmic approach to decision making, and just weighting that, like I weight you, like I weight me, like I weight people I have a lot of data on. So that's just a way that we've looked at it thus far. Is by far not going to be able to predict where the world's going, because these are backward looking machines as well. They're only going up what we've given it. And that's what we say as well. The only people with real forecasting and future insights are humans. And we say that changes every day. That like knowledge and that human perception and that vision of the future is uniquely for the humans. You can set up computer systems to do it, obviously, and you can be complemented, but that's why we are really bullish yet again on humans' knowledge and human perception.
From what I'm hearing, there's a certain value to human imagination and the ability to think in the future that machines don't have. And that ability that we have as humans, coupled with AI technology, is what's going to make us superior in our work, in the way that we place bets if we're using the platform, and just in everything that we do. Would you agree with that, or would you disagree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And knowing how to navigate the whole spectrum of timelines, which are open to humans now to make business, personal, and professional decisions, or otherwise. Say if we're analyzing, what may happen in a given sporting event, a given asset over a month, or trying to plan when you think we're like certain large major events are going to happen in the world. As I joked earlier about, when is people going to go back to the moon? When is that going to happen? What are all the industries and technologies that are going to be developed around that? What are all the things you can do when that happens? When do we think, certain large natural disasters are going to happen? When, and use this in risk profiling and giving them probabilities, and then baking this into the future of decision making across these levels. Is it going to allow us to allocate resources accordingly and make bets? And you have to think of bets for everything. Everything you do in life is a bet. I know there's some cheeky commercials around this right now, but we've taken a lot of this reading and learning from Annie Duke's book, literally titled that, Thinking in Bets. And she's a professional poker player. But you have to think about everything you do in life as a probabilistic outcome that you need to weigh a given certainty that it may or may not happen, and to find a particular reward if it does happen, or a penalty if it does happen or doesn't happen likewise. and knowing how to navigate these and thinking in that range of possibilities is, hey, it's a 10% chance of happening, but the upside's very, very large. Let's go do that, right? That's how VC investing works. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there's a 1% chance this company is going to be $1 billion company and we're all going to make money. So I need to make 100 of these bets. And if I'm right, you know what I mean? And they all have a 1% chance of success. Great. You know, that's thinking in bets yet again. So, you know, sports betting sometimes has like a weird like history around it, obviously, but everything we do is betting in a lot of senses. You know what I mean? You're getting a university degree, you're starting a job, you're betting on that company, the chance of it still succeeding or that degree of knowledge being valuable in the future. All of these pieces are bets, or like what the AI gave you, or what a robot told you to do. All these pieces are very important, and that's what we focus
You're working on an incredibly difficult environment. I want to call it a problem because it's not necessarily a problem. It's actually a solution to help us make better decisions. But this is a very, very difficult problem to tackle. So it's really cool that you and your team are doing that. One. And two, my next question is like, what are the challenges that you have to overcome to make this
on.
successful?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so for crowd and collective intelligence, this is nothing new, right? Like they've kind of proven some of the baseline pieces of this in a variety of experiments over the years. But the most famous one often is predicting the number of jelly beans in a jar. You ask 100 people, you average it out, you're basically going to get it spot on, right? That's cool for predicting, a known thing that you can very quickly validate. And, it is what it is, but for anything in collective intelligence, for it to work, and for crowd knowledge, you need a diverse set of mindsets that are coming in. You need to be able to analyze and aggregate the data, and you need to be able to reward people and have incentives and penalties and have that community vested in what happens. So across all those buckets, you can probably tell why Web3 and crypto are very valuable for those pieces. As we spoke about before, knowing how to reward and penalize people is very important and very powerful. So that is going to continue to be an ethos for us, having the data on chain, being able to connect with other markets and be able to have all this data, both like say in normal server environments, but on chain as well. And then being able to get a diverse group of people that are not just in like a boardroom in your one place and go that route. That's also very powerful. So these buckets are what we're constantly tackling and constantly trying to iterate with, and then applying the latest in machine learning, et cetera, latest in gamification, these types of pieces that make this whole thing hum, the latest in UX, UI design, just connecting all those dots and having it all flow together.
What because I could see this becoming really addictive to certain people. How uh are you thinking about the ethics involved in the betting of the sports betting offerings that you're offering, and making sure that people don't overuse or go over a certain budget that they might set? How do you make sure that people are kind of doing things responsibly while using your platform?
Yeah, there's a lot of tried and true methods out there right now for this. So we follow all those regulations and those rules and those systems and all those structures that have been put in to make sure exactly those pieces don't happen. So yeah, that's very very manageable parts of the business, to be honest, and it's a big part of like how this stuff has been able to go from like the gray markets to the more traditional regulated markets. All these policies and procedures are kind of spelled out and what the norms are and what the expectations are and how you kind of manage these. Um, and yeah, the world's fraught with other places that we think are much more hairy, much more dangerous for financial than this. Yeah, so we manage that accordingly. And I think yet again, just educating yourself about financial literacy, period, financial scams, period. And for us, we're really saying we want to help you make smarter and better decisions. You know what I mean? We're not like trying to make you outdo yourself and over risk yourself. We're really trying to build that collective intelligence, that knowledge, and prove that people working together and collaborating together is more powerful with these models than just trying to extract capital from people. Which in the crypto Web3 world, people love a good rug and love a good pump and dump. But that's not at all what we're trying to promote here.
No, and I wasn't getting to that at all. I think it's really great that the collective intelligence piece is powerful, and from my perspective, and it's around helping people make better decisions for themselves. And once you are equipped with the information, that's how you're able to make an informed decision. What When it comes to Luca Theory, like what is your vision for the company moving forward in the next couple of years, and what would that enable people to do once that vision comes to life?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're on a mission to track 1 billion predictions over the next 5 years. And with that approach and with that achieved, we feel like the decision making tools that we're going to be able to create during that process is going to really help onboard so many more people to Web3 in general and be able to provide a backbone of these tools for decision making in DAOs, be able to have new forms of democracy, have new forms of voting, new forms of work, new forms of companies and operations that are going to be able to exist when we have these new governance tools and systems available to us. There are hundreds and hundreds of DAOs popping up all the time now, but the amount of shitty decision making practices and tools and approaches, they're just replicating the crap that you see in traditional boardrooms. Is not really innovating with the best in, say, of leveraging AI and machine learning to apply these pieces and leveraging the best of crowd and collective intelligence. You just ended up in a biased environment again. It's like, oh, I have the most tokens, therefore my say matters. Trust me more. And if you have the most tokens or the most shares or the most clout, you should want to make the best decision. You should not just get the best decision by or have the decision making power by default. And if you're really a savvy operator and you really believe in the future of technology and you really want to have the best outcome and you're able to remove your ego from decision making, and that's literally the reason we started this, because we were all had our ego involved, we all had our biases involved, and we're like, we are never going to be able to make decisions at scale for this to work. And the number with these predictions that we've made and had the success rate, I know I have not individually beat the algorithm. No individual user on our teams have beat the algorithm, but the collective is smarter than the individual. And that is what we want people to realize. And that is what we want to see adopted. That is what we are going to continue to do ourselves and promote that and help educate people about the power of collective intelligence. And say, particularly as people with the power and the clout and the capital, is if they realize they have these token gated environments and it was like, oh, well, I have the largest, like what happens in DAOs right now when you go look at them. I was like, oh, well, I have, the largest token stack. So I get 60% of the vote. And be like, man, that's not what you want. There's obviously liquid democracy and stuff evolving. Masari has some great tools. Aragon has great tools. And a lot of them are just recreating collaboration tools. And some of them feel more like Slack and some of them feel more like just traditional boardroom decision where you're just voting with your shares. But if we can have tools like this that are based on collective intelligence and you have that proof of success baked in and you know who to trust, you know who to believe, and you know who not to trust and know who not to believe, then the ability for us to make savvier resource decisions increases dramatically because we're not operating as blind anymore. And obviously, we're in a resource constrained world. So if we're going to be making these big investments of time and capital in different projects, in different ideas, etc., we want to know that we're using the best of the knowledge to make those decisions. And we feel that collective intelligence principles that are focused on human perception and mirroring the human and the machine, that is the way to go. And that is what we'll continue to work on.
Yeah, and I think it's even more than just knowing who to trust. It's knowing who to trust and the parameters that have been set. Can you trust that human on this decision and their parameters? Because sometimes the human could be right a bunch of times, but in one case, because the parameters were slightly different, that decision was wrong. So you're now able, through your platform, for what I'm getting, you're now able to look at the history of the success rate of the person, and then also, I'm assuming, view the parameters that were set and why they made that decision. And then if an event differs from the past success, you can decide if you want to follow this person's or this set of predictions, or maybe go follow someone else's predictions based on a different set of parameters that they have been able to analyze a little better than your usual go-to person, for example.
Exactly, exactly. And knowing where those niche knowledge sets are. Again, someone who might be great at like predicting the price of Bitcoin or political events or sports, like they're probably not gonna be the same person. You know what I mean? But you want to know who to trust when on what their niche is, and then know other times when not to trust them. And that has been like yet again, even across different sports is totally different, different assets is totally different. So exactly that, knowing where the person is the cream of the crop and maybe where they're not, that exercise we find very valuable is one of the main problems that we're working on as well. And then another interesting piece, as we get larger and larger data sets and we have stronger and stronger models, then we're able to start predicting what you will predict. Say, hey, in a similar environment based on Evan's past predictions in this domain, we are assigning a probability to most likely that he's going to think this way, and then being able to analyze those whether that actually matches up. And then, as you just mentioned, when those deviate, is there something going on where is our model bad, or is Evan now have a new perception and he's changed like his mind has something, there's something going on? And particularly for organizations, identifying that if you're being paid by a fund or paid by Dow to come in and operate and say, hey, like, oh, Evan's changed his mind here on this now, this is not what he's originally been thinking, like, then you can dive deeper and then maybe unpack it a little bit more and understand and have everyone's knowledge grow, or even check your own self, because I know myself, over the years sometimes I'm like, oh, let's get out of this position, I don't believe in the narrative anymore. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you capitulating? Sometimes it's just a capitulation and you're losing confidence and trust in yourself when you shouldn't be, right? And identifying those moments as well when you should continue to move forward. Um, just certain things you see when you develop these approaches and you kind of have this methodology and you have this care level for these pieces, rather than just always thinking that you're going to be right and always just trying to use your power and your clout and like your influence on people, but you really are open to eliminating your biases and getting rid of ego and just having confidence in your track record and living and dying by that. We find the probability of successful outcomes goes up massively.
That's awesome. I this is a great place to end. I can keep talking with you about this because this is super fascinating. We're gonna have all the links in the show notes to for people to check out your material, your website. Is there any final thoughts, final words you'd like to share with the audience around what you're building?
I think the biggest thing with Web3 and getting adoption and getting these pieces of the internet moving forward is acting and voting with your feet. You have to get involved in these communities and you have to get involved in the traditional communities, which are not part of Web3 or crypto, to really have any influence. We're seeing a barrage of regulation change, lawsuits, and governance decisions being made for this community without a lot of strong involvement. And we are a democracy. We are allowed to vote, and our governments do work for us. And if we want to stand for the future of the internet and digital property rights and digital ownership rights and AI rights and everything that goes with what is changing around us, we must become engaged citizens. And you need to be engaged in the Web3 communities that are going to help grow and evolve and be part of DAOs and be part of the apps and be part of the markets and test these things out and use them. And then be part of the traditional world as well, which is not necessarily understanding or believing what's going on here. And think new and creative about the way the world could operate. Balaji has a lot of great work done on this in the network state. And just because you're in a geographic connection with somebody doesn't necessarily mean that is the best group of people for you to collaborate with. And identifying those particular parts of the world and markets where you can collaborate and push these agendas forward, and not just believe the way things were will be what they are in the future. That's not the case. And have an ability to change your mind. It's very powerful to, because the world's going to continue to change and we have far too many dogmas that people just believe and they put their head in the sand or put their feet in cement and don't change. Like, that's not the way this world's going to work. You had to constantly take in new information. You had to constantly evolve. Your perception is going to keep changing. So just staying very active, staying very humble, and staying very diligent And there's a lot of upside here, particularly as I think the narratives across AI, crypto, Web3, politics and everything evolves yet again. It's just really staying active, staying diligent, and continuing to evolve.
This is an awesome way to end. Dave, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of this. And I'm sure the audience is going to be thrilled. Thank you.
Thanks for having, and look forward to being back.